Are the Mau Mau speaking to us? So I first saw the writing while buying second-hand clothes from Ras Ranja's stall in Gikomba Market. We call them Tumba, second-hand clothes. The letters hung in the sky like white smoke, but they didn't dissipate. They were just there, hovering above the endless rows of mitumba bales, canvas shades, and rusty iron sheets. Ras Ranja noticed me staring. He had been arranging blazers and pencil skirts that once belonged to corporate women in some first world country. You can probably guess which one it is. His woolen hat was pulled over his dreadlocks, but I could see them peeking out at the back of his neck. They looked like they had been growing for decades, because they were thick like anchor ropes. You see them too? He asked, not looking up from a navy blue blazer he was examining for defects. His voice was deep, aged like fine whiskey, the kind of voice that makes you want to believe everything it says. I nodded, though he wasn't looking at me. The letters were in a language I didn't particularly recognize, though they looked ancient, but somehow digital, like if you projected hieroglyphics in neon lights. They pulsed slightly, as if breathing. Mau Mau, he said, finally looking up. His eyes were bloodshot, like he had seen too much but understood it all. They are sending us messages from the other side. I wanted to laugh, but something in his tone stopped me. The blazer in his hands was wrinkled from its long journey across the oceans. It had been compressed in bales with thousands of other discarded clothes. So what he did is, he smoothed it out carefully, like he was comforting a child. Mau Mau? You mean the freedom fighters? I asked, trying to keep the skeptic out of my voice. The letters in the sky seemed to shift slightly, rearranging themselves like iron filings following a moving magnet. Who else? He hung the blazer on a metal rail that felt the weight of the clothes. They discovered the truth before anyone else. Why do you think the British fought so hard to stop them? They knew too much. A small crowd had gathered now, heads looking upward. Someone was taking photos with their phone. Another person was live streaming, their voice high pitched with excitement. Or was it fear? Look at the direction of the letters, a man in glasses said. He looked like a university lecturer, complete with elbow patches on his jacket. If we could read them normally, then they are being projected from Earth. If they are backwards, then they are coming from the other side. Other side of what? Someone asked. The dome. Ras Ranja answered before the lecturer could speak. The dome that covers the whole earth. The one they don't want us to know about. The lecturer had concern written on his face. That's not scientifically possible. Come on, man. What about the atmosphere, the International Space Station? Science? Ras Ranja interrupted while laughing. Your science is their science, their story, their lies. He pointed at the clothes hanging around us. Just like these clothes, we wear what they throw away, think their thoughts, believe their truths. I looked at the jeans I was about to buy. They were Levi's, slightly torn at the knees, probably donated by someone who thought they were helping clothe the poor Africans. I put them back on the pile. The letters in the sky pulsed again, stronger this time. They seemed to be moving, slowly rotating like a combination lock searching for its numbers. But why now? I asked. Why would the Mau Mau wait until now to send messages? Ras Ranja was quiet for a moment, adjusting his woolen hat. A drop of sweat rolled down his neck. They didn't wait, he said finally. They've been sending messages all along. We're just now being able to see them. More people were gathering. The market's usual chaos had paused, replaced by a different kind of energy. Phones were out, social media was lighting up with different theories. However, the letters continued their slow dance overhead. It's a government project, someone shouted. Holographic testing. It's aliens, another voice countered. It must be a sign from God. Rasranja ignored them all, calmly folding a pile of men's trousers. His movements were precise, practiced, like he had been folding clothes since the beginning of time. And maybe he had. The British didn't just fight the Mau Mau in the forests, he said quietly, but somehow I could hear him clearly over the growing crowd. They fought them in the spaces between spaces, in the gaps in their stories, in the cracks in their dome. The letters seemed to respond to his words, pulsing brighter. They were definitely moving now, forming new patterns and maybe new meanings that I still couldn't understand. The Mau Mau found the edges, the cracks, he continued. The places where the white man's world met our world, where their truth met our truth. They didn't just hide in the caves, they hid in the folds of reality. I watched him fold another pair of slacks, his movements hypnotic. The crowd's noise seemed to fade away as the letters in the sky reflected in his bloodshot eyes. But why clothes? I asked. Why sell second-hand clothes when you know all of this? He smiled, and for a moment I saw something ancient in his eyes, something that existed long before colonial powers drew lines on maps and built domes in the sky. Where better to hide the truth than in plain sight, in the things they throw away, in the clothes they discard. He patted a bale of clothes. Every piece tells a story. Every stitch holds a secret. We wear their garbage, but we make it our own. We turn their endings into our beginnings. The letters in the sky had formed a complete circle now, rotating faster. The crowd was getting larger, spilling out into the narrow market paths. I could hear sirens in the distance. They are coming, Rasranja said calmly. They always come when the truth starts showing through their lies. Who's coming? The ones who maintain the dome, the ones who paint the sky every morning, the ones who tell us what to believe. He started packing up his stall slowly, but they are too late. Once you see the cracks, you can't unsee them. The sirens were getting closer now. The letters in the sky were spinning so fast they had become a blur, a halo of ancient future script spinning against the blue sky. What do the letters say? I asked, helping him fold the last of the clothes. It felt important somehow, this simple act of folding in the face of whatever was coming. He looked at me for a moment, his eyes reflecting the spinning letters. They say what they have always said, what the Mau Mau died trying to tell us, what every cast-off piece of clothing whispers, if you listen carefully enough. The sirens were very close now. People were starting to walk away, the crowd dispersing like oil bubbles on water. They say we are all wearing second-hand truth, he continued, while tying the last bale closed. But the original truth still exists, hidden in the spaces between spaces, in the gaps in their story, in the cracks in their dome. He handed me the pair of Levi's I had put back. For you it's free, he said with a wink. Truth is always free, even when it comes in second-hand packaging. Then he was gone, melting into the chaos of the market like he had never existed. In the sky above, the letters made one final revolution before vanishing, leaving the sky empty and blue and somehow less real than it had been before. I stood there, holding the jeans, feeling the worn-out denim under my fingers, wondering if the truth was stitched into its threads, wondering if the Mau Mau had really found the edges of reality in the forests of Kenya. wondering if we were really living under a dome of second-hand truth. The sirens arrived, but there was nothing left for them to find. Just a market full of Mutumba clothes and people going about their business, pretending they hadn't seen the letters in the sky, pretending they couldn't see the cracks in the dome above them. I went home and wore my old new jeans, feeling different somehow, more aware of the spaces between spaces, more conscious of the gaps in the story we had been told. That night, I dreamt of Ras Ranja, folding clothes at the edge of reality, his eyes reflecting ancient truths. In the dream, he looked in my direction and smiled, and I saw that his eyes were made of stars, the real stars, not the ones painted on the inside of the dome. And for a moment, I thought I could hear the Mau Mau whispering their secrets through the cracks in the sky.